What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today we are doing a review of the new starter set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. This is the latest starter set to come from Wizards of the Coast. It's been available in Targets, I believe, for some time, but now it is releasing to the wider public. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast for a copy of this for review purposes. And I'm going to be breaking down everything in it. And more importantly, giving you my typical how you should run for the adventure included. That's going to be the bulk of this video, but I wanted to go over everything in it and kind of give my thoughts about whether or not I think you should go pick it up. So on the box, it's labeled for 2 to 6 players. So in theory, you could run it one-on-one. It does give some advice for if you have less than 4 players, letting some players run multiple characters, but we will get into that. First and foremost, this is included. It's just an advert for the other books and where to find their socials and a place to go review / survey about it. It's a one sheet advertisement. You get dice. You get a set of blue dice included, which in theory, especially first 3/3 level, virtually all you're going to need. And even so, if you need to roll multiple, like 2d6 or something, you can roll the d6 including here twice. So yeah, I mean, obviously eventually you're going to need more dice if you stick with the hobby, but this is more than enough to get you started. The starter set rulebook. So this, I think, unironically, is one of the best resources for a brand new player, because if you hand somebody the player's handbook, it says, here's how you learn how to play D&D, it's very intimidating. It's a very big book. Whereas this is not that big. It is 32 pages if you count the back cover. I also love that they made the back cover the conditions, so you could just have this as a reference for the conditions, because a DM screen isn't included in this set, which is understandable. It would have been really cool if there was a DM screen included, but I get that there wasn't. But yeah, having this on the back, this appendix, is really smart and a good call from a design standpoint. But this has the table of contents on the cover, and it just goes through everything you need to know on how to play and a bit more. But it's not everything, because you don't need character creation rules in here because you already have the characters made for you. So if you just want to show somebody not how to build a character, how to like all the stuff of D&D, if it's just how do I play the game, this is a phenomenal little booklet. Covers the rules really well. Has the handful of spells that are included on the character sheets, but they did something very smart with the character sheet design to make that not as necessary, which, guess what's up next? Character sheets. These are the best character sheets of any of the starter sets thus far, because it explains how to do everything. So yeah, basically you have your scores here, your skill proficiencies here, but it has over here what proficiency means and what it means when this little circle's filled in over here and why the numbers are the way that they are. Additionally, for attacks, rather than just having mace +4 +2 damage bludgeoning, it says in melee against a target within 5 feet of you, you can attack with your mace, roll 1d20 +4 to see if you hit. If you do, the target takes 1d6 +2 bludgeoning damage. So it spells it out, which for a new player is great. For an experienced player, obviously I don't need all this. I just need the numbers on the sheet and we can move on. But for a brand new player, this is very, very, very helpful. So yeah. Additionally, for like spell casting, this is the cleric spell sheet. It has the 2 spells that you always have prepared as a life domain cleric, bless and cure wounds. Then on the back, boom, it has all the cleric spells for 1st and 2nd level, and then it explains how you pick them, prepared spells. So you have a space to write down which spells you pick from this list. Make sense? So no, this is great. It lays everything out very cleanly. And then on the back, you have a whole lot of writing with the character's background and just some tips on how to make the character yours, how you gain levels, what you do when you level up, how you track your spells. And every character has a little quest. Like for the cleric here, personal goal, banish a shadow of death. Researching images from your dreams pointed you to Stormwreck Isle, not far from Neverwinter. A remote cloister there holds a temple to the dragon god Bahamut, who is a patron of heroes and a champion of justice. Someone at the cloister may hold a key to the impending doom your deity wishes you to avert. That's what you got. And there's stuff written in the adventure that relates to the little backstories that all these characters have and the reason that they're coming to the island, which is a really, really good touch, because I think that this starter set, and this is something that Bob Worldbuilder, go check out his channel if you're unfamiliar. He has a lot more subscribers than I do, but if you've never checked out his channel, go check it out. He, in his review of this box set, said the previous box sets felt like it was meant to attract players from other systems to D&D 5th edition. This is meant to attract people who have never played D&D before, and I wholeheartedly agree. These character sheets, this adventure, all that assumes you have never done this before. And for a starter set, that is smart. Some people might think that that's tedious. Some people might look at these character sheets and go, I don't need all this. This character sheet isn't for you. Like, if you know how to play D&D, guess what? You can play the starter set adventure. It's a lot of fun, but it's not meant for you. You are not a starter. You're an established player. I'm not a starter. This wasn't written for me. But I think for the people it was written for, it's very well designed. One thing to note, on the Rogues character sheet, there is a typo. Under Investigation, it says Investigation Intelligence and it has proficiency, but it's got a +0. This character has a +1 intelligence, proficiency bonus +2, so that should be a +3. Something to keep in mind if you're running this. Just keep an eye out. If you have somebody pick the rogue, make sure to mark that on their sheet that they have a +3 in investigation, not a +0, because there are moments where investigation would be very helpful, and having a character proficient in it is a good thing. Okay, now to the big boy. The adventure included. I say that it's a 39. Well, it's a 48-page document total with the bestiary in the back. And all the appendices. The actual adventure itself is shorter than that. It goes up to page 35, not including the little running the adventure. It's about 30 pages total. Not a super long adventure, but you don't need it to be. It's a starter set, and it covers 1st through 3rd level, which typically go very, very quickly. I will say, starting up my home game that I've talked about on the channel a couple times for those of you that have watched multiple videos here, the 2 experienced players at my table, when we were doing character creation at session 0, looked at me with anticipation. Were like, so what level are we starting at? And I was like, 1st level. And they're like, oh, come on, 3rd level. Like, let's skip to the good stuff. We have a lot of new players at the table, and 1st through 3rd level is a phenomenal point for them to learn how to play the game and how to play their characters, because a 1st level character sheet like this is much more manageable than a 3rd level character sheet, because you don't have to deal with all the subclass stuff and all the extra fiddly bits. So this is a phenomenal prologue to a larger campaign if you want to do it that way. If you just want to run this as a self-contained thing of like, hey, here are the character sheets, here's the adventure, we're going to try out D&D, and then if we like it, I'll make my own campaign and we can build characters and all that stuff because we have the player's handbook. Or you can continue it, and it takes that into account in this adventure. It's very good about pointing out things that's like, hey, if you want to keep going, this might be an interesting plot thread to explore. We're not going to explore it here, but you could drop this little bit of world building now, and down the road, it could be fun. So that's something that I think was really smartly done, is you could continue this adventure. You could run a whole campaign on Stormwreck Isle and like the surrounding sea around it. They have done a lot of work in the world building department. I'm not super familiar with Forgotten Realms, so Stormwreck Isle might have all this lore already pre-baked into the setting, but even if it is, they did a good job of putting enough in here to entice somebody like me that doesn't know Forgotten Realms to be like, oh, this is very interesting. So at this point in the video, we're about to get into spoilers, because I'm going to talk about this adventure and talk about how to run it. So if you are a player that's just here to see if you should go get the starter set and force one of your friends to be the forever DM of your group, then I say do it. I think that this adventure is very good. It's hard to contend with Lost Mines of Phandelver. That was such a good opening adventure, But I will say that this is very, very good. And the character sheets and the way that this is written for first time DMs is better. Like, this is meant to be run by a first time DM, and those characters are meant to be played by first time characters. I cannot say the same wholeheartedly with the other starter sets that Wizards of the Coast has released. So if you are a first time player or a first time DM, I would actually recommend this starter set. And then if you really like it, then maybe go check out Lost Mines of Phandelver, because that's a very good adventure, and you could start your larger campaign off of that if you like. But anyway, let's get into Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. So first and foremost, you have a very good running the adventure section at the top with some Forgotten Realms lore. This is the little sidebar I mentioned before about number of players and how to run with fewer than 4 players. Then you have the map of the area. It's a fairly small island, and you just have 4 points of interest on the island. It's a very manageable adventure. You're not running around all over the place, but there is some density to it. So, and it has some good DM tips here and how to read the adventure. Really basic stuff, but once again, for a first-time DM, it's good. So, this adventure assumes that all the player characters are here for the reason listed on their character sheet. It does not bother with why everyone is coming to Dragon's Rest. The conceit of this adventure is that everybody is coming to Dragon's Rest, coming to Stormwreck Isle, and they want to get to the commune that is known as Dragon's Rest. If you have somebody that's contentious against that, find a different backstory. Like, this whole adventure is based upon you wanting to be here and wanting to help out. So the very first thing that we get when the players get off the boat is zombies on the beach. And consistently, when I run D&D for first-time players, there's always a light bulb moment, especially for people that are familiar with video games, where they realize they can do whatever they want. Because I think academically they might think that when they're starting to play, but they think about it in terms of a video game of, like, I can do whatever I want, but still within the box of this prescribed adventure. And so these zombies are written in such a way to where it can have that moment very early on, because the players get off the boat, they're on the beach, and they see zombies shambling towards them. My video game brain kicks in. I'm like, oh, we got to kill those zombies. That's obviously the next thing we have to do. But if you as the DM take a beat and say, okay, so the zombies are shambling towards you this direction, but the path that you need to go to get to Dragon's Rest is actually this way, and they're moving so slow that they won't be able to catch up to you. And I think you will have players go, wait, we don't have to fight the zombies? And you just be like, no, you don't have to. They're a menace, an annoyance, like, but you certainly don't have to. They're not in your way. They're not actively, like, they will attack you once they get within range if you stand here for long enough. But right now they pose zero threat to you. And I think that can be a really impactful moment for brand new players of being like, whoa, yeah, why would we bother fighting the zombies? Let's just go. Then they'll have a quest later on to go take care of the zombies, but they don't need to know that. So that can be a very impactful moment. And if I am a DM running this adventure for new players, I'm going to emphasize that moment of, like, letting them know you don't have to fight the zombies. They're there, but you don't have to. You can find a different way. And I think that can be really impactful. Okay, one thing I will ding on this adventure is there are a lot of NPCs in Dragon's Rest, and a lot of NPCs that don't matter that much. They are fun flavor. Most of them are kobolds, which are a blast to roleplay. But once again, I know, because I'm an experienced DM, I can look at this list of kobolds and go, okay, that one matters, that one matters, that other NPC matters, and that one matters. The rest are fun flavor, and if somebody really wants to engage with them, I'll do that, but I don't need to focus my prep around thinking about these NPCs. Whereas a brand new DM will look at all of these and go, well, they have names, and they wouldn't have names if they don't matter, so I better prepare, like, voices and the things for all of these NPCs, and that's going to be exhausting and way too much work for not the payoff that you think it's going to be. So I will say that Elder Renara is the most important NPC. She runs Dragon's Rest. She's a bronze dragon. So yeah, also could kill the PCs in a moment if she decided to. So Elder Renara is important. And then the other ones, Mila is a kobold that is important because she has some brothers that are on the other side of the conflict. So you will run into them later on in the adventure. So emphasizing her is a good idea. And then Rix has like some information for one of the quests. Basically, there's a quest dealing with shipwrecks, and Rix saw a shipwreck. That's all Rix has to contribute to the quest. So once again, technically important because Rix holds a clue, but not important. And the only other, if I was preparing this, the only other NPC that I would focus on, the kobold NPCs. There are two other NPCs that I haven't gotten to yet, but they're not kobolds. Mumpo is the other NPC that I would just put front and center, because Mumpo has stolen a coin from Renara's hoard and thinks that he got away with it, but is super paranoid about it. Or at least I would play him as super paranoid about it, but he's confident that he did it without her knowing. Renara knows, and she thinks it's adorable and hilarious. But yeah, I would have Mumpo think that he is like amazing, but be looking over his shoulder constantly. Once again, has nothing to do with the adventure, but that would be the one NPC out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kobolds. And one is actually important from a narrative standpoint. One has a clue for a quest that isn't totally necessary. And then there's Mumpo, and Mumpo is wonderful. The other two NPCs are Tarak and Varnoth. They are humans. Yes, both humans who have shady pasts, and they relate to they relate to one character's quest. One of them does, and the other one just has some fun stuff. If for the cleric who has the soldier background, will instantly recognize them, or characters can make rolls to recognize who Varnoth is. But they both have like tarnished pasts and have come to Dragon's Rest to leave their old life behind. Tarak has a quest for the players. Varnoth does not. I mean, she also saw a ship crash. But yeah, so Tarak can be added to the list of necessary NPCs, which I think are 3. There's Renara, there's Mila, and there's Tarak. The rest of them are completely disposable. So that's a lot of NPCs to throw at a brand new DM on a single page. In terms of the maps are really good. They're laid out really well, and they're labeled really clearly. And I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about blue boxes. As you can see, there are a lot of blue boxes. And for those of you that don't run pre-written adventures, the blue boxes are what WotC reads for you to read. So here's another one. Here's some more. I'm not the biggest fan of blue boxes because they can be disruptive for a new DM, because you think, I have to read this. As opposed to if you eliminate the blue box and just describe the room to the dungeon master in the text, then they can decide. They could just read it. They can read it off the page if they want to. But if you just present the information and allow them to decide, like, okay, so I know what it's like, so I can describe it in my own voice, as opposed to, oh, here's another blue box, so I have to say, a cliff of dark gray stone towers 200 feet above the crashing waves, which rush in and out of a yawning cave mouth. A swirling slick of colors dances on the water's surface emanating from the cave. That's good descriptive text, but it's not in my voice. That's not how I talk. That's not how I would describe. If you just described to me that there are dark gray stone towers 200 feet above the water, and there's a swirling slick of colors on the water's surface coming out of the cave, that's I would be afforded the opportunity to describe it in my own voice. So I think the blue boxes are a bit much in the way the adventure is written. I understand it, because you don't want to feel like you're leaving a DM out high and dry without a way to describe stuff. But I think people are capable of, like, you just giving them what a thing looks like and then allowing them to describe it how they want to. Because here's the other thing. There's not descriptions really outside of the blue boxes. There's like the features, which give me like the measures. Here's how tall stuff are. Here's like narratively like the backstory and things like that. But I don't have a like easy block of text that just like describes it in a simple, straightforward way other than the blue boxes. But if I'm a new DM and I see a blue box, I feel like I have to read the blue box. I'm supposed to read the blue box because in the running adventure section, it tells me, hey, when you see a blue box, it's meant to be read aloud, or paraphrase to the players. So I mean, that's just my own thing. I think we could do with less blue boxes, but that's my personal thing. Anyway, so the way the adventure is structured, basically you get to Dragon's Rest, and then you have a few quests that you need to do before Renara trusts you to go deal with the bigger problem. And the 3 quests that you need to deal with are really cool. You get to go investigate the shipwrecks, which is really cool, and figure out where the zombies are coming from. You get to go deal with some myconids that Tarak, he makes potions of healing with mushrooms that they provide him, and recently they stopped contact and put up a guardian to keep him out, which is disconcerting. So yeah, I mean, it's very good. You effectively have 4 chapters of this. You have Dragon's Rest, you have the myconids, you have the shipwreck, and then you have the observatory where the final section of the adventure takes place. And then you also have an exploring the island section with some like random-ish encounters, which one is great, where you fight an owlbear, but the owlbear has a little whistle around its neck. And if somebody can make the right checks, they can get the whistle and blow it with an animal handling check and subdue the owlbear. So that's a really great. And once again, that is structured in such a smart way to show players that combat is not the only path forward. Because once again, you could describe there being a whistle around its neck on like a leather strap as it's fighting the party. And all one player has to do is ask like, hey, what does that mean? And it's like, well, give me a check. Give me a roll of some kind. Don't make it their action on their turn. Just let them think about it for a second. And if they pass, say, well, you know that owlbears can be trained, and typically a whistle is utilized in the training of them. And now all of a sudden it becomes a different problem because of puzzle. How do we get the whistle off the owlbear? And I think with new players, you're going to see some awesome like solutions about jumping on the owlbear's back or trying to distract it with food or whatever. So when you present an off-the-wall problem like that to new players, you will be surprised at what they will give you. And then so everything is pretty straightforward in this adventure when it comes to running it. Like I said, there are things that I would highlight in terms, I would absolutely run the owlbear adventure, or the owlbear fight, and present that and to further emphasize what you did on the beach with the zombies about like, listen, you can do anything. There are multiple paths forward in any given situation. I will say, for as much as they threw at you with the NPCs of Dragon's Rest, they went a little light with the myconids. Like the myconids, a bunch of them have names, and they're like spattered throughout the cave system. But when I was reading this, I got the vibe. I was like, it feels like they just expect the players to kill everyone. Like, and I think it's just written with the like contingency that they might go full murder hobo in here and just try to kill everybody. But I wish that they would have been a bit more meat on the bones for the myconid adventure, because there's this whole wonderful blight. Well, the blight's not wonderful. There's this whole wonderful story about this blight affecting the whole cave system, and the party can deal with it and save the leader, and they can get this like really great boon from the leader because they helped and saved them. And I wish they would have front loaded the second chapter. Yeah, the second chapter of this adventure with a bit more. I think that's the best way I could put it. So I would spend some time with chapter 2, the Seagrow Caves, and think through the myconids and how they would respond. There's an interacting with the myconid section, but it's basically how to get they're all hostile, non-violent, but hostile, and how to get them at least to indifferent. But I would put more thought into how the party could interact with the myconids to make them friendly and present the myconids in a way that is welcoming, still hostile, still get out of here, we don't want you here, but make it clear that it's out of fear. They're scared because their leader is about to die, as opposed to anger towards outsiders. And I think that will be the key to getting the players to go through this chapter of the adventure in a desire to help, as opposed to a desire to kill their way to a solution. The Cursed Shipwreck is fine. The ending is interesting. The actual chapter itself, there's a bunch of zombies, and then you come across a ghoul, and then a harpy at the very end, because a harpy has made a roost in the crow's nest. Potentially 2 harpies. I'll get into that in a second. But the ending of the chapter, where you find like the captain's journal, and you find this really interesting note and an amulet in the journal. It's all really interesting. It just feels like it's totally divorced from the actual chapter. It feels like it was smacked on at the end. They couldn't figure out a way to integrate it into the story. I mean, put a ghost in the ship. It's a cursed ship. Instead of having a journal entry where the captain describes this woman dying and what she did, have this ghost appear on the ship and piecemeal give the story to the players. And then when the players, I would keep the captain's journal, and when the players read that page, it can be this wonderful twist because, spoilers, she had this amulet that was like dedicated to her god and like a promise to connect with her lover again. And she was on her way to Dragon's Rest and Stormwreck Isle to meet him again, but the ship was crashing. She was dying from the shipwreck, and she prayed to her god to reunite her with her love. But it turns out her god is Orcus. So that's why you got zombies everywhere. And so that can be a phenomenal twist if you've met this ghost that is like this woman who died tragically on her way to reunite with her lost love. And she's held onto this amulet as a sign of her love and devotion to him and to her god. And, you know, the players will want to help her, want to help resolve this tragedy. And then in the final moment, it can be, oh no, she's evil. And they could fight the ghost or just try to escape the ghost if you want to make it like a more environmental, like get out of Dodge thing. And then there's some great ways that they can lift the actual curse. But I think there was a missing element in the cursed shipwreck chapter 3, that would have been really fun if you had this ghost lingering about, talking to the party. Okay, and then we have chapter 4, the Observatory. One thing I want to talk about with chapters 2 and 3, the Myconids and the shipwreck. They wrote these in such a way to where they assumed that the party could go in any order, which is the correct assumption. And so what they did, which I loved, is they basically gave notes on each combat encounter in chapters 2 and 3 for if the party is second level, because we're writing this assuming they're still first level, because they get to Dragon's Rest and they get sent on all these quests. They finish one chapter, they level up. They finish another chapter, they level up. So they're level 3 by the time they're going to the Observatory. But they didn't assume an order, but they gave the DM all the work that they needed to bump this up. Like I said, for the harpy fight at the end of the shipwreck, it's 1 harpy, but it says if they're second level, make it 2 harpies. So that's really smart design, in my opinion, from them. The Observatory section. All this is good. You have some good narrative stuff with some kobolds that are Mila's brothers that can be convinced to help the party like navigate the observatory, but they won't actually help them fight the big bad of the adventure because they're loyal to him. Like their loyalty still lies with the bad guy, but if the PCs have befriended their sister, then they'll at least be friendly to these people that have been kind to their sister, even though them and their sister have their disagreements over their worldviews. I think that's a nice touch. I think that's pretty great. Party could also just kill them. That's also another viable thing. And it presents an interesting puzzle without an obvious solution. So basically, Rennara, in order for them to get access to the observatory, gives them a moonstone key that will activate the bridge from here to here. Notice how there's not a bridge. It's because of magic bridge when you stick a moonstone in one of the statues over here. Well, they get over here, and now they can't get to this thing without another moonstone. So, but they only have 1. So how do we get this moonstone? Because if we walk back over this bridge and pull the moonstone out, this bridge goes away. So what do we do? And that's up for the party to figure out. And it provides like a couple like offhand, like they could do this or this or this, but it doesn't have a set solution in the adventure of like the players need to do X and Y, then Z happens, which I really appreciate. It will allow for a lot more creativity that way. And then, okay, so the final encounter. So basically the big bad of this whole thing has been Spark Render, a blue dragon wormling, who has kidnapped Adron, who's kidnapped Adron, who is a bronze dragon wormling, because Adron came to fight Spark Render and lost. So basically the two different ways to resolve this adventure are either the players sneak up on Spark Render and just start combat, kill Spark Render, and go rescue Adron, or they could sneak past Spark Render, go down into the prison, release Adron, and then have Adron to help with the fight. That's like option A1 and A2. And then option B is if the party goes through all this combat at the observatory and they kind of know, okay, like there's a blue dragon wormling up there because they saw it flying when they came in, we should probably rest up before we go deal with that. This adventure has a ticking clock. If they take a long rest, the conditions of the final fight are different. And that's great. I love that. Teach players there are consequences for resting. Anyway, so then Spark Render has started his ritual that he wants to do, to basically awaken these draconic spirits and tie them to him and his will. And it's all very cool. And the combat encounter for when the ritual is going on is super freaking cool. There's different dragon spirits that can affect the fight in both good and bad ways for Spark Render and the party. And it's very dynamic, and it presents other things that the players can do other than just fight Spark Render. They can try to manipulate the effigies. They could try to destroy the effigies. They could try to manipulate the sculpture. And all these things are listed and have different things that can happen. If the party can find a way to just kill Spark Render before the ritual starts, great. Good tactical play. What I would do, though, because Spark Render is not dumb. Spark Render is a wormling, but they're not dumb. I would have a point where, Spark Render realizes they are mortally wounded and they run away. They retreat, with or without Adron. They need Adron for the ritual, though, but you could always change that as the DM. But if they could somehow like capture Adron and take off, that would be ideal. But anyway, I would add that condition for if they're fighting Spark Render before the ritual, Spark Render will retreat and try to return to complete the ritual, so that the players can also do the really fun ritual fight. That's just how I would do it. Is I would add that one thing of like, once Spark Render is, let me see how many hit points Spark Render has as a blue dragon wormling. Spark Render has 52 hit points. I would probably go, once Spark Render is bloodied, for those of you that didn't play 4th edition, once he has 26 hit points, halfway down, then Spark Render is going to try to beat wings, I guess, and get out, because Spark Render knows they have lost this fight and they have bigger fish to fry in the form of this ritual. So they will come back later and try to take care of the ritual. And then you can have this really cool dynamic fight with, you could even have Adron rest up if the party rescues Adron, and Adron could assist them in the fight at full power, and they could feel super wicked cool. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, the adventure that comes with the new starter set for D&D 5th edition. I think this is a great set. I think for brand new people just checking out the game, this is the best one they've done so far. Kudos to WotC for this. There's a couple things that I would tweak in the adventure, but overall, I think brand new DMs and brand new players will have a phenomenal time and feel awesome, because this has both Dungeons and Dragons in it. It's like one of the few adventures that lives up to the name of Dungeons and Dragons. So what more could you possibly want? Thank you all so much for watching the video. See you next time.